Hi friends, it's me, Kate, and I think you might still be able to see Scooter. He is following me around today. Not sure what that's about. I was at work all day today. I had to go into the office for my day job, so I think maybe he is just missing me. Before we get started with our yoga class, as always, I'm going to check online and make sure that we are live streaming before I get any further, so bear with me for just a second here. All right. Let's make sure that I am in frame. I think I am. I'll just pull this back just a little bit just to make sure. And I'm going to adjust my mic here so that you can hear me. All right. So welcome to Cats on Mats with me, Kate, your local friendly neighborhood yogini. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a local yoga teacher here in Manitowoc. I'm a 500 RYT, which means that I have spent more than 500 hours learning in a classroom setting about how to teach yoga, how to keep my students safe, learning about philosophy and history as well. So very well-rounded teacher. And I'm coming to you live from my home studio, which is fabulous because we all can access yoga now for the most part, much more than we could before because now we're all online, it's free, we can hang out, you can do it in the space of your own home or wherever you happen to be if you're traveling. So I've got Scooter here with me today. He is our little Cats on Mats mascot. He came from one of my original Cats on Mats classes that I partnered with the Lakeshore Humane Society to host. But I do have two other cats and a spouse here in my home with me. So if there are noises from other family members, I will be sure to let you know what they are so that you're not startled or concerned for me. But we're going to do a class today, which kind of came to me after my work day, where we're coming to on our mat if you happen to have a bad day today. A lot of people that I talked to today, super stressed, things weren't going the way they wanted. For me, I had something come up right at 8 a.m. and it lasted all the way to the end of my workday. So I've had a very full day. And so on days like this, it's really nice to come onto our mat, move a little bit, so burn off some of the maybe anxious or aggravated energy, and then settle down onto our mats with some more soothing postures. So that's what I have planned for us today. I want you to remember that I'm going to offer as many variations as I can as they come to me through our practice. So if we're working on something and it doesn't quite feel right, please feel free to use lots of props. So anything that you might have in your home today, I'm planning on using my blanket and 2 blocks. And yoga blocks traditionally are 4 inches by 6 inches by 9 inches. So if you have a stack of books that you can adjust, maybe from your local library, that would be perfect. You can also use a chair in your practice or use the wall. Get creative, get some pillows, get whatever you think you might need to get into some poses and feel supported and safe. So I think the only other thing I would like to let you know is that yoga is a practice for emotions, and it can help us gain some emotional wellness. But sometimes when we work through poses, emotions come up, or maybe we're rehashing our day. So just try to be mindful of being aware of how your body is feeling when these emotions come up, and then do your best to just let them go. Even if they keep coming right back, every time say, okay, I understand that that's happening and I don't need it to address it anymore in this moment. So you just let it fade away. Sometimes having a color or a texture in your room, texture of your mat underneath you to bring your attention to, feeling a little bit more grounded, can be really helpful in those situations. And then the last thing I want to mention is that all of the poses that we're going to work with today, they are all invitations. They are not obligations. That also includes any breath work that I cue, inhales and exhales, Be sure to follow your own breath and listen to your body, how it's acting today in this moment. Because I can't be there with you, and you know your body best. So do what you can with what you got, and do what makes you feel safe, secure, maybe a little bit challenged, but comfortable. All right? So all that out of the way, we'll get started. I like to start my classes in seated meditation and breath work. So for me, that means taking my 2 blocks. I like to put them side by side, so it's about 8 inches wide and then 6 inches tall. So I like to set that down, and then I personally like to kneel. So I put this right under my butt, and then I have my shins down on the floor here. Other people might like to do something like sitting crisscross applesauce. This is called easy pose. So if this is more accessible to you, that's fine. If you want to sit in a chair, that's fine. If you've had a really tough day, I personally recommend laying down on your belly. It's fantastic. The pressure from the floor, very soothing on the front of the abdomen, draws your attention to the back of your rib cage for your breath. So choose an option that suits you today. I'm going to sit in my normal meditative pose. Scooter's hanging out. So hopefully he won't make too much of a ruckus. Maybe he'll just go right to sleep. But we're going to take our hands, put them palm face down wherever we happen to be. This is very grounding, just to have the palms down on a surface, whether it's your own body or the floor. And we're going to take a couple of breaths to center ourselves. So, like I mentioned, I had a very busy, hectic, challenging day. So when I come onto my mat, the first thing I do is pay attention to my breath in this moment. Because oftentimes when we're busy, the breath happens automatically and we give it no attention at all. So notice how it's moving today. Try not to manipulate it at all. Just notice where it is. Oftentimes when we have really busy days, when we're under a fair amount of stress, the breath can sit really high in our chest. So up kind of towards the neck, under the clavicles. It doesn't really come any further down than maybe about the middle of the chest. So notice if that's where your breath is today. Notice if it's a little short. Maybe it shudders a little bit, so the texture might not even be super smooth yet. Or maybe you're having the opposite. Maybe you had a really nice slow day. You're winding down and the breath is very easy. Flows all the way in and out, no interruption, no hesitation. If that's you, fabulous. If it's not you, also fabulous, because now we have an opportunity to grow. So if your breath is up in your chest, we're going to think about maybe working to expand it, deepen it by maybe a count. So oftentimes yogis will count their breath, inhaling for however many seconds, exhaling for however many seconds. And notice how your count is balanced. So sometimes we'll find that we inhale for 1, 2, 3, and then we exhale for 1, 2, and then we have to inhale again, right? So we're just trying to find equal breath here, if you're not already there. So maybe we'll inhale for 1, 2, 3, and then exhale for 1, 2, 3. Inhale for 1, 2, 3. Exhale for 1, 2, 3. So wherever you are, whatever your count is, see if you can find the middle. Maybe you can inhale and exhale a little bit longer. Maybe you're still really short. Maybe you don't even make it to 3. So that's okay. And then maybe once we do a couple of rounds where the breath feels even, we can experiment with drawing out the exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. So maybe now we're inhaling for 1, 2, 3, and then exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3. Exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5. So we're working just to find our level of balance, then stretching out the exhale. And this emphasis on the exhale is going to soothe our nervous system even more. So we're breaking out all of our tools. So if you can lengthen your breath even further, feel free to do so. But if you get lightheaded or you start to feel really tense, maybe some anxiety creeping in, relax the breath. Breathe normally or just step back from your counts a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit too long, a little bit too difficult. So you want to find the middle ground of being able to work and put some effort into your breath practice without straining or creating tension. So just breathing for another couple of rounds. Wherever you are, working towards where you want to be. No judgment. No expectations. All right, so when you're ready, if you have your eyes closed, you can slowly open them. You can either return to a normal breath pattern or do a big inhale, big exhale, bringing some energy back into the body after our breath work. And if you're laying down, we're going to work our way up to seated. Scooter's going to stay laying down. So for us, we're going to start by rolling our shoulders forwards and then back. So I like to work really nice and slow in forward singular motion, and then I like to change. So some people kind of like to wiggle back and forth. For me, big slow circles with my shoulder joints feels fabulous, especially after a long, stressful day. So try and find any places that might be a little crunchy. I can already hear there's a space lower in my back that's tied up with my shoulder muscles where I can feel some tension. So we're getting somewhere. Nice and easy. And then we'll reach up with both arms up towards the ceiling, wherever you are. Interlace the fingers, turn the palms face up and reach up. And now at the same time, pull your low ribs in and make sure that you're not allowing your pelvis to spill forward. So you want to keep your pelvis nice and neutral. So front and back, both reaching down towards the floor. Then you can drop your chin and feel a big stretch across the back of the neck. Feel your shoulder blades reaching down your back here. Big inhale, big exhale. And then we'll release and shake your hands out, getting rid of some of this excess energy. Remember I mentioned we're going to move around. So just before that, we're going to drop our left ear over to our left shoulder, roll our head, tucking the chin, coming all the way around for a neck roll. And then as we work across the back, we're lifting the chin as if we could sun our face. So we're not throwing the head backwards. We're lifting the face up as we come across the back of our range of motion. So we're going to come all the way down one more time. Ooh, I can feel some tightness there. Glad we're here. And then we'll switch directions whenever you're ready. There are few things better after a long day than just some simple neck stretches. My goodness. All right, so we're going to come to neutral. We're going to work our way towards standing. So I'm going to pop these blocks out from underneath me. Move them off to the side. We're going to work through some cat, extended cat. So hands and knees here. Wrists right underneath the elbows, knees right underneath the hips. If you've been practicing with me, you know the drill by now. So finding lots of space in between our fingers, pressing the tops of the feet down into our mat. Big inhale. Exhale, lift the middle of the back straight up towards the ceiling, tucking the chin, tucking the tailbone. And then inhale, lifting your chest, keeping your pelvis neutral and reaching with the chest towards the top of your mat. Exhale, lift, inhale, open, exhale, lifting, inhaling, and opening. All right, so from here, we're going to tuck under our toes, starting to load some weight into the shoulders, and if it's comfortable for you, we'll come into the downward facing dog. If it's not comfortable to do downward facing dog, you can simply reach one leg back, staying on your hands and knees, toes down on the floor behind you, and press through your heel here. So you can do one leg and then the other. For those of us that want to adventure into downward facing dog, we're going to tuck under the toes, lift the knees, and transition back. So we're on our hands and our feet equally. If you look up, you can check and see that your index fingers are parallel to each other, so they're not rotating in or out. Then you look back, maybe your heels float off the floor. I like to lift my heels really high, bend my knees, and reach with my butt as if I could sit on the wall behind me. That gives you a nice long spine. But in any case, from wherever we are, we're slowly going to work towards a standing forward fold. So if you're in a downward facing dog, we're slowly walking the feet up towards the hands. If you're down on your hands and knees, whatever way is comfortable for you to work up to standing is fine by me. So here we are on our feet with maybe the hands on the floor. If they don't quite reach, you can always use blocks underneath them, or your chair if you're using a chair. So you can put your hands on the seat of the chair. So wherever you need to be is fine. So we're bending the knees deeply so we can allow our chest to come down onto our thighs. So there's no space here. And then working our way towards straightening the legs. But there's no need to have straight legs. What we're working with is tension in the hamstrings here. So just allow your knees to be as bent as they need to be. Relax the head. You can shake it yes and no. Right. So from here, we're going to bend the knees even more deeply and inhale. Come all the way up. We're going to bring the hands, press them together above our chest. So if you can see, you actually have a great view of what it is to be in front of my chest here versus above my head. See that difference? So for me, I love to have my hands a little bit further forward because it allows me to drop my shoulders down my back, and it's easier for me to keep my low ribs in here, right? Nice and easy. So we'll take a big inhale here, And then lift the very top of our chest up towards the ceiling. So we're coming into a small standing back bend. Just enough. And then exhale, coming all the way back down into our forward fold. So here's where we might want to have a soft blanket behind us. So I'm just going to toss mine right here. And you might want to have blocks handy. So from here, however you need to reach the floor with your hands, get there. So if that means using blocks, you can do that. But we're going to step our right foot back and release the right knee, top of the right foot down onto our mat. So here we are in our low lunge, hips parallel to the short edge of the mat. So we're going to come into a more of a lunging pose, but keeping the hips parallel. So we're only going to come in as far as we need to in order to feel a stretch across the front of this hip flexor. So we're not going to come all the way forwards and release the pose, or maybe do it with less integrity. We want to keep it nice and solid. So if your hands can come down onto blocks, that's fabulous. If your knee is way in front of your ankle, you might be able to step your ankle forwards a little bit so we can have something a little bit more straight up and down. All right, one more big inhale here. And then we're going to bring the blocks out of the way if you need to. And we're going to step the front foot back. So we're hands and knees again. And we're going to do just cat extended cat stretches here. So curling and opening, curling and opening. And then other side. So this time, right foot comes forward first. Coming into our low lunge once again. So I like to start a little bit out so that you can make sure your hips are parallel to the short edge. By that, if you're not familiar with how I teach, that means I don't open my hips to the side. See that difference? So right and left are coming forwards at the same rate. And then once I find my stretch, I'm going to stay there. So you might have to come in and out a couple of times, finding the right spot. And again, if your knee floats way forwards in front of your ankle, you can always adjust it. Couple breaths here, all the way in, all the way out. When we get really tense, hip joints have a tendency to close up. So if they're tight today, don't worry about it. So then we're going to bring our hands down onto our mat if we can, tuck under our toes, lift the back knee, and rock the weight just enough so that you can step up in between your hands. So here we are, back into our forward fold. So you can tuck the chin, allow your neck to get nice and long. Take a breather here. Again, making sure your knees are bent so your chest and your thighs can make contact. And then from here, bend the knees, inhale, come all the way up to standing, hands in front of the chest, and then reaching the chest as if you could put it right up on the ceiling. So lifting and lengthening the spine, maybe coming back. And then exhale, coming back to center. So we'll do that again, all right? Big inhale, exhale, release. Inhale, hands come up overhead, reach the chest back, and then exhale, come forwards, back down into our own lap. Now this time, left foot is going to reach back first. Knee can come down, top of the left foot. And then here we are in our low lunge once again. If you're interested, you might be able to either come back into your low lunge like we did before, so just doing the first variation like we just did, or you might be able to bring your hands down, tuck under the back toes, so your back foot is parallel to your front foot, so it's not turned out. Then we're going to reach with the front hip straight back to the back of the mat so we have some stability. Maybe pick up the chest. So if this isn't too much of a challenge, with your hands on your upper thigh, ooh, it's a challenge for me today. Then you can press the hands together and lift them up for high lunge. And then when you're ready, wherever you are, we're going to come all the way down. If you'd like, come through hands and knees, cat extended cat like we did the first time. Or keep the back knee lifted, pick up the front foot and reach back for downward facing dog. So you'll see lots of options in our practice here today, right? So choose what suits you. If you want something a little bit more strenuous, a little bit more soft, the world is your oyster. So when you're ready, left foot this time is going to come up to the top of the mat. And again, here we are in our low lunge. So opportunity, check in with the hips. Like I mentioned, we're not allowing the hips to open up. We're keeping them parallel here. All right. So from here, same thing. We can either bring the hands down, stay in our low lunge, either on our blocks, or tuck under the back toes, lift the back knee, pull the front hip back towards the back of your mat. So we're really keeping this front line very square here to the front of the mat. And then, if you have the balance, you can press the hands together and lift up. So you'll feel a big stretch from your fingers, through your underarms, through your abdominal wall here, across your hip flexor, and then maybe into your quadricep, which is your upper thigh. And then exhale, come all the way down. And from wherever you are, we're rocking the weight backwards just enough to step up in between the hands and come into our soft forward fold. I don't know if you can hear Scooter, but he is snoring. So I feel like I have to shout over him for our class today. All right, so from here, bend the knees, inhale, come all the way up, hands above our head, and lift our chest. Small standing back bend. And exhale, Samasthiti. All right, so I'm telling you, there's never enough time for fun, you guys. So we are gonna come into a wide-legged forward fold. So if you have a block handy or the seat of a chair, I would say that's definitely going to be helpful for us today. So I have mine. I'm going to use it on its highest height, which is 9 inches. I'm going to put it horizontal in front of me so that I have a place for both of my hands if I want to use it. So for my legs, I turned on my mat so that you can see me. You don't have to, but feet are roughly parallel to each other, the inside edges. So that might mean that your toes are turned in or turned out a little bit, depending on the way that your feet are shaped. And then from here, we want to think about the pressure we're applying in our feet. So this is a really fantastic opportunity for us to feel grounded in our practice again. So you can even close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, and focus on what the bottoms of your feet are feeling in this pose. So I like to bend and straighten my knees so I can feel the weight shift. And in this posture, we want to think about putting pressure through the ball of the big toe, and then also through the outside edge of your heel. So we have diagonal energy across the feet. This will help keep the outside edges of your ankles from getting too fatigued and overstretched. Okay? So from here, hands to hips, lift up through the chest, bend the knees, and come all the way down towards our forward fold. So here we are. We have our hands down on our block. And I've taught this, I believe, facing you, so I might shift and turn halfway through, but you can stay exactly where you are. So while we're here, you can bend and straighten your knees. And we really want to work towards getting our shoulders and our hips roughly parallel. So mine, I think, line up okay here in this pose. And I have a really straight spine. So you want to be able to direct your pubic bone back behind you towards your back wall. So you can have a nice long spine here. Pull your low ribs in towards your chest. So if I let my low ribs go, See how that changes my back? I get a big dip. So I really want to keep my pelvis even, tailbone dropping, pubic bone lifting, both at the same time. Big, long spine. So then from here, what I'm going to do is we're going to shift our weight into our left hand, press into the pad of the big toe, so make sure you're not stretching out the outside edge of your ankles too much. So hand down. Now we're going to rotate our shoulders open to the side. So when this happens, the hips have a tendency to shift a little bit. So we want to shift the hips back and to the left. And sometimes it helps to take your hand, so the top hand, which is my right hand, and put it on the back of the pelvis. So you can feel how you're keeping your sacral plane level. Now for me, this is the most I like to turn with the shoulder. Some people like to lift up with their arm here. For me, that causes my back to cramp. So if it feels safe and secure in your body, feel free to do that. Find some extension. But for me, this is a better option in my body. So you can try one and then the other. Find what works for you today. Take deep inhales and exhales, which can be challenging in a twist. And then when you're ready, we'll release back to center. And we'll experiment with dropping one hip, keeping our legs straight, dropping one hip down towards the floor, and then the other hip down towards the floor. So we're finding a little bit of space, keeping the legs straight. So we're just getting a little bit of stretch through the hip joints here. So whichever hip you dropped first, I dropped my right. Make sure you're dropping on the opposite side. So I'm dropping my left and then coming back to neutral, and then we're going to twist to the opposite direction. So I'm going to take my right hand, put it in the middle of the block so it's right underneath my chest. And then I'm going to turn my shoulders open into the left, and I'm going to take my left hand, put it on my sacral plane, because I can already feel my left hip lifting a little bit. So I'm going to shift back to neutral, put the hand on the back of the pelvis, and lift through the chest. So we really want to think about lengthening the spine. All good twists come from finding as much length in the spine as possible so that the bones in our back, in our spinal column, don't grind against each other. We want to find nice open spaces for them to rotate. One more big inhale here. Big exhale. And then we'll release. Come back to center. You can bend and straighten the knees a little bit. Notice where you're starting to hold tension in this pose. Kind of fun. We're going to work it out, so don't worry. So I'm going to move my block off to the side because I can. I'm going to bring my hands to my hips, bend the knees deeply, and then inhale, come all the way up to standing. Get a little bit of a head rush, let it pass, hold on to furniture near you. We always want to make sure that our blood pressure comes back to normal before we move into any other postures. So from here, we'll heel toe, the feet together until you feel comfortable stepping them in. And we'll step up to the top of our mat, and we're going to do what's called an A series. So we're going to bring our hands to heart center, press them together. Take a big inhale here. Exhale, release the hands. Inhale, they're going to come up overhead, no back bend. So just length through the spine. And then exhale, come all the way down into a soft forward fold. If you're interested, you can put your hands either on your shins or bring them to your hips and come up into a half lift like we just were in our wide-legged forward fold. So then we have our feet together, same motion. Then we're going to exhale, put the hands down, and you can either step back directly to downward facing dog. If you like to do vinyasa, you can do that too. But we'll just come into down dog for a breath or two. You can also just come down onto your hands and knees because we're going to come down onto the mat anyway. So one way or another, we're going to take a couple breaths in some version of our pose. And then we're going to come down onto our mat. We're going to come down onto our bellies. So if you want a little bit of extra work, you can transition dropping the pelvis so that your shoulders are over your wrists. And then exhale, slowly lower all the way down to the floor. If you just kerplunked on the floor, that's okay too. There are plenty of days, plenty of practices where I kerplunk. So no judgment from me. All right. So we're going to work with Shalambhasana or locust pose. So you'll notice yoga is taught in Sanskrit, which is a dead language now, like Latin, but it's taught in Sanskrit kind of like ballet is taught in French, right? So we're going to bring our hands to about the middle of our spine here. So, or I should say the middle of our rib cage. So if you can imagine where your ribs come together on the front of your body, sometimes it helps to kind of feel where that is, right here. That's going to be about the middle of our rib cage. So that is about where we want our hands. So I like to line up like the knuckles of my hands with that line. And we're going to press the tops of the hands down. If this is uncomfortable on your shoulder because you have rotator cuff issues, so with the elbow coming up and behind you, you can also just put the hands down way down near the thighs with the fingertips pointing towards your toes. So 2 options for shoulder rotation here. This is very neutral. This is a little bit more strenuous on your rotator cuff. So choose what's right for you. We're going to take our feet, press them down into the top of the mat. We're going to press the feet down. We're going to imagine we're pressing our knees down. So tops of the feet and the knees and the quads. So the thighs and the front of the hips and the pubic bone. So as much of the low body as you can get pressure down through the floor, even if you're just imagining it, that's what we're going for. And then from here, we'll turn our face neutral if it's not already there. And then inhale, lift up. So if you have your hands down with your elbows up in the air, we're pressing into the hands and acting as if we could pull the hands down towards the hips, but they're not going to move. So we're just pressing into the floor and pulling. So you can see I can slide on my mat a little bit. So some people imagine having a set of like a wheel on the front of your pelvic girdle that you could maybe roll back and forth on. So we're thinking here, if you have your hands behind you, you're going to bend the elbows just slightly and act as if you could pull your hands up towards the top of your mat, right? So 2 options for us here with our arms. Take one more big inhale and exhale here. I know this is a lot of work. And then we'll exhale and release. You can turn your cheek to one side, and then we'll roll back and forth across our hips. So if you're getting a lot of tension here in the low back, another option is to bend the knees and drop the ankles from side to side here. This also gives you some rotation through the hips. It's really nice, okay? Pay attention to your breath and how it's moving here. Focus on filling up through the back line of your body. So we'll do one more of those with the same hand variation. So whatever you chose, I demoed for the most part the first variation. So this time I'm going to demo our second variation with a softer option for rotator cuffs. Bring the face to neutral, press into the tops of the feet, press into the knees, press into your pubic bone, and then lift the chest up off of the mat. So key here is we're keeping the low ribs down. So maybe you just only come up half an inch. Or maybe, like today, I'm having a good day. Good. I'm having a large lift day. So today I have a lot of lift between the floor and my chest. It's not the most, so that's something to think about, but it's a good indication of where I have some strength. paying attention to my low back and noticing how hard that's working here. It's very exciting stuff. Watching how the breath moves as we stay in the pose, how it changes. Maybe you're feeling like you're getting a little hot. That's okay. Ooh, you might be able to hear my stomach growl. That's exciting too, right? And then when you're ready, we'll release. And then you can roll across the hips. Taking your time. If you want, dropping the knees from side to side. Nice and easy. Turning your face in the opposite direction from the first time, if that's comfortable. All right, one more here. So we're going to come back. This time, if you'd like to be adventurous, we're going to bring the hands and rest them on the back of the pelvis and interlace the fingers. And if you want, we're going to do this without the support of the arms. So both variations we already discussed, perfectly acceptable. If you want a little bit more of a challenge here, we're going to open up through the shoulders. So from here, we're going to turn the face to neutral. Same thing, pressing through the feet, pressing through the pubic bone, pressing the quads into the mat. Then inhale, lift through the chest, and imagine taking the tops of your hands and reaching them down towards your feet. So notice if you get more lift this way or less lift. So sometimes with the arms behind us and activating the back line a little bit more, we get a little bit more lift, a little bit more space. But sometimes you'll find that you were actually using your hands to give you more lift. And without the support, now you're left with just what your back line can do. And so that's something to understand about yourself too. One more big inhale and exhale. You might even start to feel light in your toes. That's okay. And then when you're ready, we'll release. Again, roll through your hips. If you need to, flex the ankles. Finding lots of space and relaxation where you can. Deep breaths. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, come back to whatever it was that you used at the beginning of class to feel grounded. So maybe it's the texture of your mat, color, or an object in the room. All right, so we're going to come into child's pose. So we're going to leave the feet where they are, back down on the mat. We're going to put our hands underneath us. We're going to transition through tabletop, nice and slow. And then slowly work towards sitting back on the heels and coming into a forward fold. So we want to move slowly because we don't want to spasm our back. And for some of us, this posture looks a little different. For if you're somebody who your butt doesn't come all the way back, you can put a roll of a blanket on top of your heels here. If your feet don't like to lay all the way flat, you can put a lift underneath the ankles here. You can use blocks. Same thing if your head floats, you can use some kind of a lift here. Lots and lots of options. Basically, if anything floats, jam a prop underneath it. So we want to feel supported in our poses. So for me, you have the option of leaving the hands up in front, which is going to give you more of a stretch across the front of your rib cage here. But I am going to opt to bring my hands back by my feet. If your fingers reach, you can wrap your index finger around your pinky toe. That's absolutely fine and wonderful. Couple big breaths here, all the way in, all the way out. Focus on the sensation of your back line expanding, particularly through the low back, imagining where the kidneys are. Expanding. You can even shift the hips from side to side. And then when you feel ready, we're going to bring the hands back underneath us and inhale, sit up. So how are we doing on time? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So cute. So from here, we're going to come into wide-legged forward, or regular forward fold. So we're going to sit with our legs extended. There's maybe a slight internal rotation through the legs here. So we're really focused on dropping the front part of our pelvis, the pubic bone, straight down so you can sit up nice and tall here. So if you have some rounding through your low back, I would advise sitting up on something, whether it be a block or up on a blanket, so that you can drop your pelvis forward enough so it's neutral, okay? So you want to find that. And once we're there, we're going to inhale, reach up with both of our arms, and exhale, come forwards into a forward fold. Now be mindful, the only hamstring stretches that we did were maybe a downward facing dog, or the alternative of being on our hands and knees and pressing one heel back at a time. So this pose is going to feel pretty tight. So try to just take it for what it is. Know that we're not super warmed up, so if it feels really inaccessible, that's okay. All right? This is our first forward fold. We're just going to take it for how it is. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale and come up. We're going to do some other variations. So we're going to come into head to knee pose. So I'm going to draw back my right foot and tuck it into the sole or the inside edge of my left thigh. And then this knee, for me today, is floating. It's not actually floating super high. So instead of a block, I think I can get away with just the edge of a blanket here. So same thing, want to be able to sit up nice and high. So if it means getting extra props so that you can do that, feel free. So you can still sit up on whatever you used for the last pose. We're going to make sure that our shoulders are parallel to the extended foot here. And then we're going to walk the hands down and come into a soft forward fold. So you might feel this posture in a couple different places. You could feel it along the back line of the extended leg. You could feel it in your low back. You could feel it in your side body here, maybe in the outside edge of the bent leg, or someplace else entirely. This is one of those poses that's really unique for people. Taking some deep breaths all the way in, all the way out. And then we'll inhale and come up. We're going to switch sides. So extending the right leg this time, bringing the left leg in, sole of the foot coming into the inside edge of the thigh here. If your knee floats, make sure that you're supporting it. And same thing, shoulders parallel to the top of the foot, and we're not letting our toes drop out to the side or drop in, keeping them right up and down. And then we're going to inhale, lift up the chest nice and high, and then exhale, come forwards over our extended leg. And so notice where you're feeling the stretch on this side. So it might be the same, but it might be different. Maybe it's different in big ways, or maybe it's different in small ways. Big inhales and exhales, allowing the forward fold to draw your attention in and down. So if you want, you can even direct your gaze to make this pose even more soothing. So if you would like to do that, I would advise taking your eyes, softening them. So we're just imagining that we're really dreamy or sleepy. And then maybe we're just looking at our kneecap. or someplace down on the surface of our leg. So our attention is really focused. One more big inhale and exhale here. And then we'll inhale, come all the way up. And then just for kicks, we're going to do a wide-legged forward fold. So I'm going to turn so that I can see you. You don't have to if you don't want to. So we're taking the legs about 45 to 90 degrees apart. So anywhere in there is fine. And I like to use a prop so that when I come forwards, I have some support. So again, we're sitting up nice and high and our pelvis is neutral. So if you feel like you're tilting or being funny again, make sure you put a lift underneath your hips here so that you can sit like your pelvis is in neutral, like you were sitting in a chair. Okay. So then from here, I like to have my block in front of me and it's going to catch my elbows, but you can use your props however you want. You can even pile up pillows and lay down on them. So from here, I'm going to sit up nice and tall, toes pointing directly up towards the ceiling, flexing through the feet a little bit, and then exhale coming forwards. I don't even know that I need a block today. So just come as far forwards as comfortable until you start feeling a little bit of what I like to call dialogue with your body. So until you start to feel a little bit of a stretch or some kind of sensation, and just stop there, just at the very beginning for a breath or two. Notice what you're feeling. Notice how your mind works around those things. What are your immediate thoughts once you start to feel the stretch? Some people are like, oh, it's not good enough, I need more. Some people are like, whoa, that is a lot of stretch. I think I need less. So, or maybe it's something else. Maybe you're like, ugh, I wish I was doing something else. Ugh, when are we gonna get to Shavasana? So any of those is fine. Just notice so you can help understand yourself a little bit better. Then, once we're done getting to know ourselves, you can start to work towards maybe a deeper version of the pose. Maybe you came in really hot, really fast, and you need to come out. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with backing out of a pose when you realize it's not a safe place for you to be anymore. It's all about taking care of yourself. Spending another couple breaths here, focusing on the breath expanding through the back line. This is our common theme for class today. Expansion of the breath through the back line of the body. Again, gaze can be soft at the floor. And when you're ready, we'll inhale and come up and out. We'll do one more big stretch, I think, as we're laying down. So if you can, draw your legs in without using your hands. It's okay if you need to, but just use your legs as much as you can so you can contract the muscles we just stretched. Then we're going to come all the way down onto our backs. So I like to scoot up towards the top of my mat so that when I lay down, I have space. So we're going to draw our knees in, give them a squeeze. And then from here, we're going to hold on to our right leg and extend the left leg down towards the mat. We're going to spend just a moment here, really focusing on keeping both sides of our torso the same length, so not allowing our right hip to scoot up towards the shoulder. We're really dropping our right hip down towards the bottom of the mat. Feeling an opening across the left hip flexor. If you don't feel a big opening here, flex your foot and press your calf down into the mat, or press your heel down into the mat. And it'll encourage a little bit more opening across the hip flexor here. So we're going to take our right knee in our right hand and bring the knee open to the side. Giving ourselves another hip flexor or a hip rotator stretch here. And then we'll inhale, come back to center. Then we're going to take the knee in the opposite hand and draw it across the midline over to the other side. So you have something that you want your knee to come down to, like a prop, you can do that. We just want to support the knee in a way where it doesn't feel like it's pulling on the shoulders. So for me, I personally really love a block at the highest height underneath my knee here, if I'm staying here for any extended period of time. And just so you know, that chime was just my door opening, so don't worry. It's all right. We're winding down. And then when you feel ready, we'll inhale, come back to center. Bring the knees in, give them a squeeze. You can even roll back and forth on the back of the pelvis. Love doing that. There are lots of big muscles on the back of the pelvis. So if you roll and make like you're drawing circles on the ceiling with your knees, you can massage those big muscle groups. All right, so then from here, we're going to hold on to the left leg, extend the right leg down towards the floor. And again, making sure we're not hiking our left hip up here. We're dropping the left hip down towards the floor and finding some big stretches here. If you hear a little bit of a ruckus, it's just my spouse in the kitchen, so don't worry. So we're feeling big stretches across the front of the hip flexor here. And then from here, we're going to take the left knee and the left hand and draw it open to the side. Just enough. We're trying not to roll off of our right hip here. So as much as you can, try to stay neutral. What'll help is flexing through the right hip, or flexing through the right ankle, excuse me. That'll help keep your hip down on the floor. My apologies for all these kitchen noises. And then from here, we'll inhale, draw the knee back to center. And then we're going to take our right hand with the left knee and come across the midline. So again, if you want to put a block underneath this knee, it's fabulous. Just enough so you can keep both shoulders down. Big inhales, big exhales. And then we'll inhale, come back to center. Bring the knees in. And then it is time for Shavasana. So, whatever posture you like for Shavasana, your final resting pose, whatever is relaxing for you, is fine by me. So for me today, I'm going to choose a variation on traditional Shavasana. So I'm going to take my blocks. I'm going to put them underneath the backs of my knees here. Just going to give me a little bit of flexion through my knee joint, a little bit of flexion through my hip joint. And then I'm going to take my blanket and cover up. So that can be nice and cozy. In particular, I would recommend at least covering up the front of your hip joints because we did work with them quite a bit today. Oh, and then we lay all the way back. So in traditional Shavasana, your arms and legs are extended and your palms are face up. And your arms are away from the body just enough so that your shoulders can feel flat across your back. So you can kind of experiment with where is the right angle for you to get that sensation. But you can also take the hands, put them palm face down on your stomach here. We're going to close the eyes if that's comfortable. Take some deep inhales and exhales. We're releasing the effort of practice, releasing all the opinions we came onto our mat with that we might have had throughout class. And spending these final moments just trying to accept our body and our breath for what they are in this moment. So notice how your breath is moving. Maybe you can think back to the beginning of class and compare your breath now with how it was when we started. And then let that comparison go and come back to this present moment. Release your jaw. Soften the front of your neck, bottom of your mouth. Feel your tongue dropping away from the roof of your mouth. Soften the space between your eyebrows and soften the eyes themselves. Relaxing all the major muscle groups, allowing your mat to support you. And we'll stay here in silent breath practice for another 2 minutes before we end together. Following your own breath at your own pace. So as always, you are more than welcome to stay here as long as you wish. But if you'd like to end with me, you'll start to feel small movements in fingers and toes, wrist and ankle circles, a roll of the head, stretch of the arms, whatever helps you feel at home in your body. And then when you feel ready, be mindful of any props you might have strewn around you. We'll slowly roll off to one side, taking our time. Taking a moment here to feel the support of our mat underneath us, the expansion of the breath on 3 sides of the body. And then when you feel ready, slowly working our way back up to seated. So we'll end class today with 3 collective breaths together. So we'll bring our hands, press them together in front of us, press our thumbs together and bring them against our sternum. You can close the eyes if you want to. We'll take a big inhale all the way in. Exhale all the way out. Inhale all the way in. Exhale all the way out. One more, inhaling all the way in. Exhaling all the way out. So I want to thank you very much for practicing with me this evening. It's very generous of you to spend your time with me. If you liked class with me, you can find me online at Cats on Mats. So you can search for me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can go to my Cats on Mats website, which is catsonmatsyoga.com. And if you enjoyed content like this, the Manitowoc Library page also has a playlist of other classes that I have taught specifically for them, for a general audience. So those are available for free anytime you want, on demand. Fabulous resource, if I do say so myself. So I want to thank you for practicing with me. Thank you to the Manitowoc Public Library for allowing me to bring a little bit of peace and quiet and serenity into your home. And I want to let you know that I will be practicing with you again. So our next class together is another Wednesday, 7 p.m., March 24th. So it will be our final class here in this series, but we might have something else in the works. So don't be afraid that you won't have enough yoga in your life. And so with all that being said, thank you, take care of yourself, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.